Greetings, it is I, Tantus Narvan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome! Today we're continuing our discussion on Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, AD&D. I'm continuing to talk about being a GM in AD&D and some things you need to know about. So now we've talked about some of the basics with characters and the types of players. Let's talk about the backgrounds of your characters, because this is an important thing for you to know about. Character background is how they're going to fit into your world and fit into your story. What it talks about here in the book is less of rules and more of guidelines to putting this together, because the fact is, your characters aren't going to start out in the story. You're going to develop the story and put them into it depending on how their characters' backgrounds are built. Whatever nature of their background will drive them into the story. You're going to have your players do the hard work about it. They're going to be the ones coming up with the basics of it. They might say, my village of blah 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 was burned down and my father and mother died in that. You would provide them with information about it's the village of, and your father and mother, if they don't have names for them, maybe you can provide them with names for them, things like that. They do the hard work of coming up with the basic stories of the background, and you add in the details that allows it to fit within the campaign world. The point of all this is to help develop some motivation for your players as to why they're adventuring or why they're going on these epic quests. You're not going to want to have this be the main plot of it, anything involved in the character's background, but you're going to want to have draw in subplots to that. Maybe the character's going for revenge, and that's the subplot of it, and then perhaps someone on the side of whoever they're going against was the fault of whatever this revenge would be. Now the overall plot would be going against the organization or the leader of the organization that's trying to cause some either global catastrophe, conquer a kingdom, something like that. But there's this revenge subplot aiming at, let's say, one of his generals. Now there are two problems with backgrounds that can come up, which you have to be wary of. Nobility and wealth. Nobility, you're someone of rank and stature. You have abilities to get resources or to influence people because you have this title. Being noble is more difficult for you as the dungeon master to control the player because they have this possibility of influence. If they're not using their title or they're going incognito, those are things that could help improve it and make sure that you could use that character still. But if the person is going around as their noble self, they're using that influence in a way that doesn't necessarily help you in the long run. The same could be said of wealth. If a character has wealth, what does it mean to gather up treasures and stuff in the game? They can call upon these resources whenever they need to purchase very expensive things or items or things that are necessary. The connection to being from like a wealthy family makes it that difficult. In the same retrospect as before, if perhaps they're not on good terms with their family to get a lot of this money, that maybe they are from wealth, maybe they're going to inherit it at some point in the future, those are the sort of things that would make it easier to run with. So it's not that you can't have players that are from nobility or from wealthy families. It's just you have to tell them, if you want to be that, you're not going to have access to a lot of these things because it will unbalance the game. We're going to have to write that into your storyline. It's up to them, again, to develop it the way they want to, but you're going to have to work with them to develop it. Now let's briefly go into races when we're talking about races in your campaign or world. Humans are normally the most prevalent race. They don't necessarily need to be in whatever world you're building. For whatever reason, you can look at a couple of different things. First off, humans have the advantage they can be any class. On the other hand, a lot of races are restricted in the number of classes they can be. This is an advantage of the differences. The races get other advantages. You have to qualify for being that race. So not being a class means that you're more likely to be human in that case in order to do it. Of course, you could have a world where humans are either non-existent or very weak. In that case, would all the other races have access to these classes? Would these classes exist? These are questions you have to ask. Would it be more common for a race to have blah, because more likely players aren't going to play humans because of the way that they're set up in your campaign world? They might be, the lower class citizens who would want to play one of them. Maybe certain classes are still only restricted to them, but they don't have a lot of them anyway in the first place because of their situation, while on the other hand, some of the other ones are opened up to other races. Use it not only by whatever world setting you're coming up with, but on a case-by-case basis. Perhaps there's a reason for your gnome to become a paladin, which is normally a human-only race. If the person comes up with this awesome epic storyline for behind it that makes sense as to why they and they alone are like the only gnomish paladin, or one of the very few that have found a way to become there because normally they can't access it, then that makes good sense. That's good storytelling. You can use that in your game. On the other hand, everybody wanting to do that doesn't make a lot of sense. You're going to have people have to come up with good reasons to get to these points in time. Now, there are level limits on races. The reason this is humans are very versatile, they're short-lived, they can have any level in any class they want. Demi-humans, because they live a lot longer than humans, they have a level limit that they're supposed to have because of the nature of that. Now, the thing is, when you're playing a demi-human race, you're maybe getting a lot of that experience very quickly, but you're hitting that level limit, and you have to worry about that sort of thing in a lot of games. Your GM can do things to mitigate this because it makes sense in a societal standpoint, because why aren't there like super high level elves? Because they live so much longer than humans. Well, the reason is they have these upper limits in classes in order to limit their ability to gain these things. Now, there are some ways you can do this. Now, you don't have to have a level limit. Like, for your players, you can choose not to use that level limit because they should be leveling all around the same time. That's completely fine. That's a completely fine thing to do. But you might also want to curtail it to the way that the level limit works. Certain things you can do with this. You can make it harder for demi-human races to level. Either 2, 3, or 4 times more experience might be needed for them to gain a level than what a human would need to gain a level, so that they keep up with the same sort of pace. On the other hand, I would suggest more, if you're going to use some of this, maybe do it that it's only after they hit the level limit. So let's say if the level limit is 12 for your race, you hit 12 in that class and you want to keep going, yes, it will cost you more experience points after that point in time, but you can still level in that class, and that might be an excuse as to why that race doesn't level up slowly. Again, it is completely up to you how you want to handle the level limits. If you want to use that more for NPCs and not PCs, or if you want to use it in both of them, it's perfectly fine. It's a balancing factor between the fact that the demi-human races are going to live far longer than humans, and that's really the only reason that you're going to have it. So that's it for today. I didn't go over a huge amount of things. I went over the basics of backgrounds, some of the basic information of races and classes, the combinations of them, and thinking about being demi-human races and how demi-humans are affecting your game. And I talked about the level limits, which are based upon demi-humans being able to live far longer than humans. We'll continue talking about this information and character information and you GMing in the next time. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Shows your support for the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.